Hello, everyone, and welcome to African Conservation Podcast. Today with us is Tobias DESCHNER, who's studying chimpanzee in Gabon with Ozouga Chimpanzee Project. Hello, Tobias, how are you?
Hello, Mathieu. I'm very fine. What about you?
I'm good. Sunny here in France today, so I'm happy. So,
Great.
what took you to Africa the first time? Was it Ivory Coast? I remember.
Yes, the very first time I went to Africa was when I went for my master's thesis to Ivory Coast. And there I worked on colobus monkeys in the Taï National Park.
Okay, and colobus, how different are they from East Africa? Are they the black and white, or they're kind of different, huh?
Well, the species that I worked on was very different because I did my master's thesis on the olive colobus,
Ah, okay.
and that does not even exist in East Africa.
Oh, nice.
So yes, there are black and white and red colobus as well, but the olive colobus is endemic to West Africa.
Nice. And how is the situation for primates in West Africa? Is it endangered? Is it tricky? Some areas maybe?
Well, I would say West Africa is a very tricky part because a lot of places, like for example, Ivory Coast, there's hardly any forest left.
Ah,
So Thai National Park, there's still a lot of forest, but because of the high population density of people, the poaching pressure in the national park as well is really, really high. And that is quite different to what, fortunately, we experience in Gabon,
yeah.
where I'm working now.
Yeah, because Ozouga is inside Loango National Park, yes. So it's a very different situation there.
Yes, it is very, very different on lots of different levels. First of all, it's just really located at the shore of the Atlantic Ocean. So, and then it's a savanna forest, mosaic environment. And because of the very low population density, there is hardly anybody living around the national parks
Mhm.
and park at Loango at least. So the poaching pressure is very, very low. And particularly at the place where our project is located, we have more or less no poaching whatsoever. And that is great because then you have all animal species at rather high densities, and as well the reaction of the animals towards you is rather relaxed. They're still wild animals, but they do not necessarily run away from you at the first instance when you see them, particularly the elephants. And we
Yeah.
have a lot of them.
So you think elephants are not scared too much, so they just walk away when you arrive, or how does it work when you walk in the
Well, that
forest?
would be nice. Uh, No, it really depends. I mean, we are lucky in a certain way that for I would say 99% of the time when we meet an elephant in the forest, we see the elephant before the elephant sees us.
Ah,
And then we can just stay put and see in which direction the elephants are going, and then we try to walk around them and avoid them. However, sometimes, particularly when the forest is dense or when it's raining, it happens as well that you just run in an elephant you haven't seen before, and then the elephant charges, and then you need to get out of there.
I'm sure. And there's like when you say forest, is it dense forest in Longo? It's like it's a more mosaic of environments. Some of it, is it like a dense tropical forest?
Well, it is very, the forest is very variable as well. There are places where the forest is very dense, particularly around swamps, and at places where logging has taken place before.
Mm.
But then there are as well places where the forest is very, very open. And in lots of the territory, the most parts of the territory where our chimpanzees are in, the forest is rather open, and there are patches where you can see almost as far as you would see in a European forest. And that for sure is just a great environment to work in, particularly if you're interested in behavior of the
Yeah.
animals.
And you mentioned swamps. So, to most people, chimpanzees live in the forest, and here they are not far or like very close to the shore of the Atlantic Ocean and those swamps. Do they take advantage of this environment?
You mean in terms of whether they feed off
Yeah,
things that you find
feeding,
in the
yes.
swamps? Well, or the mangroves. We have never seen our chimpanzees feeding on animals that are like located like in salt water.
Okay.
But one thing that we do see, and that is as well as a first-time observation, is that the chimpanzees, they feed on these air roots of the mangrove trees. So when they have these sprouts that then go down towards the soil, the chimpanzees break off these new roots, and then they strip off the bark and they feed on the pith inside of the roots.
Because of the minerals, maybe the richness.
Yes, this is what we expect. We have not done the nutritional analysis yet, but I could imagine that this is one of the major aspects of eating this pith. And one thing that is really exceptional there, but what I've realized after having seen chimpanzees at lots of other places as well, is that when you have these old individuals, like over 40 years old, and they yawn, and you can see their teeth, these teeth are in perfect shape, although they're already old. And that is very, very different to other places where great apes live. And for me, that indicates that they just have a very good situation in terms of minerals. They have everything they need, and therefore the teeth, they just stay in very, very good shape.
Yeah, the diet is very diverse. It helps, huh? And inside the park, is the team at Ozouga studying more than one family, like a few groups, or it's mainly one big family of chimpanzees?
Well, we study one community. Well, that's how one calls it in chimpanzees. And that is of a size of 35 individuals. We have several adult males. We have 14 adult females, and the rest are immatures. And the system of the chimpanzees, the social system, is different to most of the other species, primate species. And that's why it's called community. And it means that although it's one very clearly defined community, the members of that community, they do not necessarily always hang out together. That means you can have some chimpanzees leaving the group, spreading off, going on their own way, and then staying off for several days, or they meet again with the rest of the group in the afternoon and then make the nest together. You can have as well the situation that where chimpanzees of the same community, they do not see each other for weeks.
Oh, okay. So it's a bit like humans, they are not so much, it's like a village, let's say, and some people go away and they come back later. But like you said, they do always, in the end, meet each other, usually.
Yes.
Yes.
The community is very well defined, and chimpanzees are as well territorial in the way that they defend their territory against neighboring communities. And so the only way how to switch communities is for females when they reach maturity, then they emigrate out of the group into a new community. Males, on the other hand, they stay in their natal community for their entire life.
Okay, so it's the opposite as many mammal species. Okay, it's very interesting. And
Yes.
how long has Ozouga been in Loango?
Our project was founded in 2005,
Okay.
at the time by the former Max Planck director, Christophe BOESCH. And I took over the directorship of the project in 2014. And finally, we managed to habituate the chimpanzees so that they lost their fear and we could follow them and walk with them in the forest by the end of 2016. So it took us, in that situation, 11 years to finally get them habituated and be able to collect high quality behavioral data on them.
Yeah, and if it's a dense forest and swamps, the terrain doesn't help, with the habituation to find them and follow them.
No, this is a real problem. So first of all, our problem was as well the elephants. Normally, when you habituate chimpanzees, what you would do is that you go very early in the morning into the forest, preferentially when it's still dark, just that you are rather close to them when they get out of their nest, because this is the situation when they vocalize. And there you want to be there. Same thing in the evening, just before they make their nest. This is when they vocalize the most. And in a perfect situation, this is when you want to be there. But that would mean that you need to walk through the forest at night. And in a situation where your forest is totally packed with elephants, that's not such a good idea.
No. When you do walk, you have in your team, I guess, trackers and local guides that help you navigate into the forest. Now you must know it, but at the time, those guys were like your compass, right, in the forest.
Well, definitely, and there still are. They are very experienced, and particularly with elephants. It is amazing how close you can be to an elephant without seeing him in the forest. And that is when I started there. I mean, I had experience in having worked in rainforests before. But the first time I was there with a guide there at Ozouga in the forest, and he said, "Oh, there's an elephant." And I said, "Where?" And pointed out with his finger and said, "There." And I could not see it. And then he said, "Wait until it moves, then you will see." And then eventually the elephant started to move, and I was just like, wow, it's right in front of us. So it's really amazing how good they are and how long it takes for ourselves to eventually develop this search image that just out of the corner of your eye, you see movements and you're able to interpret it in the correct way and say, that must be an elephant.
Yeah. And you were saying there's many elephants inside the park, huh? Like hundreds or thousands? I don't realize how big. How big is the park?
The park is of about 1,500 square kilometers.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't know how many elephants are in the park, but several hundreds definitely.
Okay, and they don't, like chimpanzees don't care really, I guess, about elephants, or do they?
Well, the interaction between chimpanzees and elephants is in a way that most of the time they avoid each other. Or let's say like that, they feed on the same fruit.
Ah,
And one thing that happens regularly, particularly if the chimpanzees feed on big fruit, so they're up in the trees and they feed on the fruit, and then they for sure they let fruit fall to the ground, and that makes some vibrations on the ground. And the elephants, they can sense that from the hundreds meter away. So you're with the chimpanzees and they let these fruit fall on the ground, and you know exactly, okay, now we got maybe 10, 15 minutes still, and then elephants will arrive. So as long as the chimpanzees are up in the trees, no problem at all. When they're on feeding on the ground and elephants arrive, then it's very interesting to see this sex difference.
mm,
Females immediately leave, particularly as well when they have infants, then they just walk away. The males, they try to play a little bit cool, and they just continue to sit there and wait for the elephant to come. But if the elephant comes too close, then the males leave as well, because
yeah.
it's not a good idea to stand
No,
up to an
it's
elephant.
not. They realize the size difference, huh?
Yeah.
I remember you were telling me about how the chimpanzees in Loango have been feeding on tortoises, which is was very surprising to me. Could you explain it to us a little bit?
Yes, sure. So there are a number of behaviors that until now have only been seen at Loango or in Gabon. So it's absolutely clear that the chimpanzees, they show their patterns of behavior that are very, very different to places where chimpanzees have been habituated before. And one of these behaviors is the tortoise feeding behavior. So what happens there is that when chimpanzees, they find a tortoise in the forest, they take it and then they smash it against tree trunks until the carpax breaks open, and then they feed on the meat. And they share the meat as well with others in the community. And one thing that is very surprising to us, and until now we do not have an explanation for that, is that this behavior is very, very seasonal.
Oh,
So we see it mainly in the dry season, means that during May, they start feeding on tortoises, and towards the end of September, they stop again.
is there an abundance of other prey, or is it? You don't know why, really, you said, huh?
Well, it's definitely not related to other prey species or the consumption of other prey, because the same patterns we see as well for the hunting monkeys.
Ah,
Even as well, hunting monkeys happens mainly in the dry season. It's very rare, very rarely seen in the wet season.
okay. And there was also the thing about I would say your chimps, but your chimpanzees, how do you say, using insects as pharmacy, kind of, you know?
Yes, this is one of the most fascinating things that we have observed until now. And as well, We have seen it, but a lot of questions stay because this is just the beginning. However, what we have seen is now very, very regularly, once that we have discovered it, is that chimpanzees, when they have open wounds, then they catch insects from leaves, and then they squish the insect between their lips, and then they put it into the open wound. And the most fascinating thing, to me at least, as a behavioral biologist, is that they do not only do that on their own wounds, but when they see another individual that is injured, then as well, they go catch an insect and then put it into the wound of their injured conspecific. And that is, pro-social behavior at its best.
Yeah, it's unique. It's fascinating. Huh? It's something like, would the wounded chimpanzee vocalize for this, or the others would come and help randomly?
No, I have never seen them vocalizing, but what we definitely see is particularly when they have wounds on their back that they can't reach,
Yeah.
so that they would approach another individual and then turn their back towards the other individual so that the individual sees the wound. So there's definitely some signaling going on, like, hey, I'm wounded and I would need some help.
And this will be passed down generations, you think, like all the skills that they have? Do you see young ones doing this?
Well, just the very fact that we only see that in a very limited area of distribution, because chimpanzees you find all over tropical Africa, right? And despite now these observations of chimpanzees in lots of other places for decades, until now, it has first been seen at Ozouga in Gabon, but now there's another publication that just came out in 2025, where they now have seen it as well in Uganda.
Okay, in Kibale.
In the Kibale National Park, yes.
Nice. Yeah, you were mentioning many communities of chimpanzees throughout Africa. Is it like, I guess it's like patches here and there, from Gabon. Where would be the most southern chimpanzees, in Africa? Which country would that be?
Well, towards the west, there should be chimpanzees just as at the northern tip of Angola.
Ah, okay.
And then in the east, I think the most southern distribution would be in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I think so.
I think this is where in the eastern part the most southern distribution ends.
West Africa has a few also, huh?
Well, West Africa, there are chimpanzees, and there is definitely still one hotspot or one country where chimpanzee population density and numbers are rather high, and that is Guinea.
Ah, nice.
So Guinea is maybe one of the last countries in West Africa where there is a healthy chimpanzee population.
A wild one. So sanctuaries, there's a few, but wild ones, yes. The population, like you say, Gabon, there's not many populations maybe that's a reason why the parks are so safe and almost no poaching in Loango, for example, because the encroachment of population is low.
Well, in general, the population density of humans is very low in Gabon. And the other thing is that as well, the habitat is still very intact. But Gabon is still covered by more than 80% of forests. So there is humongous space for wild animals, and this is why you still see them a lot.
Do you have gorillas in Loango as well?
Yes.
You do. Okay. Do you encounter them sometimes when you go tracking the chimpanzees?
Yes, that can happen. Although when we are with the chimpanzees, it's not that frequent that we see gorillas, but yes, it can happen.
So same question for the elephants. Do they interact somehow? They just avoid each other?
I think that there is some tendency to avoid each other. Sometimes, however, you just can't avoid each other, and then they meet, and then it can go all directions. So we have had peaceful encounters where they just look at each other and then continue their way through the forest. We had as well aggressive interactions as well, where they were fighting with each other, and in the end, the chimpanzees, we have seen them as well killing gorilla babies.
Oh, okay. Not preying, you mean by chance and attacking?
Well, it's not, I do not think that they attack them for making prey.
Yeah.
But if it happens and they have killed a gorilla infant, then they eat it as well.
Okay. And yeah, they eat mainly fruits and roots and seeds and occasionally meat. And there's a particular study that you guys are doing along the fruit section of their diet. Could you explain this to us? The phylogeny tract?
So what we're in general doing is to see phenology.
Phenology.
Is we want to see changes in forest productivity over the year, and then put that in relation to chimpanzee ranging behavior or swell sociality. And therefore, what we do is we have marked trees of the species that the chimpanzees feed upon, and we visit them once per month, these trees, and then see how they are in production, like whether they have young leaves, whether they have fruit, whether the fruit is ripe or is still unripe, and how many fruit we have on a certain size of a branch. And that then helps us a little bit to estimate how much fruit is available in the forest and how the chimpanzees react to that.
Yeah, I'm sure they have their favorite fruits and trees and leaves. Leaves also, no? They eat leaves.
Yes, they eat leaves, mainly young leaves. So
Okay.
particularly at the beginning of the raining season, then the trees, they produce young leaves, and this is when you see them feeding on young leaves the most, but they do that as well at other times of the year.
To do all this work, the team, how big is the team at Ozouga?
We have 6 guides with whom we work in the forest, and because of the elephants being all over the place, we never work alone. So we always have teams of at least 2 people, one guide then going with research assistant or a PhD student into the forest, and that's how we work there. And we work in shifts. That's something I have not mentioned yet. As you know, chimpanzees are very vulnerable to all kinds of human diseases, particularly respiratory diseases. And therefore, we have a quarantine, like 5 days before we move into the research camp. We pass these days in a quarantine camp to make sure that we do not come into the research camp and then spread respiratory diseases. But that means as well that people just can't go off in the evening back to the village. And therefore, we work in these shifts. When we have 6 guides available, that means that most of the time we have 2 or 3 guides that are in camp and are available for working with the animals, and the rest they are on their holidays or weekends.
Because when you say habituated, does it mean that you guys can sit or stand, I don't know, less than 5 meters of the chimpanzee, or is it too much? Is it a bit more far away?
Well, we have our one part of our hygiene rules that we have to prevent diseases to be spread from humans to chimpanzees is that we try to keep a minimum distance to them of 8 meters, and we wear as well face masks so that we do not spread diseases. However, the chimpanzees themselves, they do not really know about our rules, and that means that you can stand there in the forest and observe them, and then suddenly you realize that a chimpanzee came from the back and just sat down right next to you at a distance of, I don't know, 1 meter. That happens. And then one needs to, slowly walk off and go regain this distance, minimum distance, just to make sure that you do not spread disease.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, it's very, very smart what you guys are doing. Like, of course, they are so sensitive to our diseases that we don't want to get them infected by everything that we carry. Those teams, they were mentioning researchers and students, are they from abroad or are they Gabonese students as well? A bit of both?
Yeah, we have a mix of PhD students who come from abroad, and we have Gabonese students as well who do their PhD with us. We just now, this week, we had one new Gabonese student arriving who will do his PhD at Loango, and he will study tool use behavior, which is as well a real special thing. And the Loango chimpanzees, they are doing really, really cool stuff there.
Are they like using rocks to smash things or sticks for termite mines, those things?
The interesting thing is that they do not use rocks, but they use sticks. They have a stick culture, as you might want to call it. So they use sticks to probe the soil for underground bee nests. And once they have located the bee nest, they dig it out with the hand and they feed on the honey. And they use as well tool sets to break open arboreal bee nests to as well then get access to the honey.
Yeah, so smart, so smart. Did you, like, how do you work on a daily basis? Is the government managing the park? Do you have contact with them, with the rangers?
Well, the government definitely is managing the park. There's a National Park Service. They are in charge of making sure that all the rules are respected. They have eco guards who are doing their patrols. We are so far off that we are mainly in contact with them when we enter the park and when we get out of the park. So, but it's very rare that we see them because, yeah, the park is big, and even when they do their patrols, most of the time we do not run into them. But the way how we work in general is that we leave the camp at 6 o'clock. We need to wait until there's enough daylight available, again, to avoid unpleasant encounters with elephants. And then we drive with a vehicle to the trailheads through the savannah, to the forest edge. And then we walk in there and we go to the place where we have left the chimpanzees the evening before. And then it depends very much how long this distance is. If it's a very short distance, then we are able maybe to find the chimpanzees still in their nests. However, the further off it is, the higher the chance is that they have already climbed down from the trees and started to walk off. And then we need to use the vocalizations to locate them and then catch up with them. And then we follow them for the entire day. The way we work is each team picks a focal animal, and you stay then with your focal animal for the entire day and note all the behavior that you see from his perspective or her perspective. And we enter the data into with a software program into cell phones. And that's the behavioral part, but we collect as well samples like fecal samples and urine samples for analysis on genetics, pathogens, endocrinology, and so on.
And I just have a few more questions. There was how, I guess you guys know, but how do you differentiate one chimpanzee from the other one if it's let's say the same age, you know?
Well, you do it exactly as you do it with humans.
Okay.
Means you look into the face or look at the body and eventually you know it. So, but it takes some time because at the beginning, if you're not used to working with them, then what you need to do is write down characteristics.
Yes.
Like, for example, this chimpanzee has a cut in the ear. This chimpanzee has black fur and a bright face, or this chimpanzee is gray with dark skin and so on. But after 2 or 3 months, I would say that you develop this kind of a concept of how a chimpanzee looks like. So if I would ask you, how do you know your brother from your younger brother from your older brother? You would not as well start like, well, there are these 4 or 5 characteristics. You just look at them and you know.
Yes,
and that's eventually after some time, it's the same as the chimpanzees.
Do you name them or you have like a number code? How does it work?
We name them. We do name.
You do, huh?
And it's actually a big celebration, particularly when the young babies are born. So we always need to wait for some weeks until we know the sex of the infant. And then everybody in camp can make a proposition for a new name. And then everybody has a vote to decide on the preferred name, and then the chimpanzee is named. And the only rule that we have is that the first letter of the infant must be the same letter as the letter of the mom. So that we have these matrilines. that
Yeah, of
are
course.
easily recognizable.
Yeah, especially since, no, I know you said the females move away, huh, from the
Mm.
community. They always do, or they stay sometimes their whole life?
We have seen them mainly going away. We now have one female that where we are think that she stayed in the natal group, but we're still waiting for our genetic results to be able to confirm that maybe her mother is still around.
When you say genetic, do you how do you say it? Do you put them to sleep to take this, or how does it work?
No, no,
No?
we would never do that. What we do is we collect fecal samples, and
Ah,
you
yes.
can do genetics as well with fecal samples.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because you do not do veterinary care, right? You do just research.
Yes.
Like,
So,
if you take gorillas in Congo, for example, they go and care for them because there's maybe there's snares, there's issues,
mm,
and maybe in Luango it seems very natural, so you don't really need to do this, right?
mm. So it is a tricky decision, I think, to make. But if you study wild animals, I think the goal should be to not really interfere with their behavior and what happens to them, just to keep it as natural as possible. But that being said, if there is damage done through human influence,
Yes.
I would not have any problem as well then to bring a vet and have the animal treated, because yeah, if you're the cause of it, then for sure something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like if animals fight in between them, or if there's an issue with another community or an elephant or a leopard, something, it's another story than, like you said, human encounter that turned bad or anything. Of course, anyone would jump and help. But like you said, we need to let nature run its course. And when they do have accidents, or if they fall from a tree, and it might be sad to some, but it's life and nature, and they are so used to this. I'm sure they're very resilient and strong, those chimpanzees.
Oh yes, absolutely. I've particularly when they got wounded, we have seen wounds where the entire thigh is cut open, like a I don't know, a 20 centimeters open wound, and it heals.
Yes.
And it heals in a situation where you can't disinfect it. There's dirt around, there are insects around, and it heals together again.
Insane. Do they have natural predators in the park?
Yes. Leopard spray on chimpanzees.
Okay.
And we had incidences where individuals of our group got killed or by a leopard.
Oh.
But we have the impression, at least for Loango, that they're really zooming in on injured individuals,
Ah.
that they avoid attacking healthy ones.
Yeah, because a chimpanzee, an adult one, is huge compared to a leopard, no? Or it's the
Well,
same
I don't
size, kind
know.
of?
I think it's more or less the same size, but leopards are able to, as well to kill a silverback, which is much bigger than they are.
Silverback gorilla.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. It
They
is.
have their very specific ambush strategy. That means they would jump from the back and then bite into the throat and try to open the artery,
Okay.
and then they just run off,
Yeah.
and they wait until the animal is dead. Then members of the group they would come and sit and yeah, watch over the body. But the latest when it gets dark, then they climb up into the trees, make the nest, and then the leopard comes back.
Yeah. You guys, when you're on the ground, must be quite a life, huh? Walking in the jungle with all these animals.
Well, particularly with elephant, we know with leopards, we very rarely see them,
Yeah.
but we are sure that they see us every day.
I think it's almost like this everywhere in Africa. Leopards, they're everywhere almost. You almost never see them, but they do see you. They do see
Absolutely.
you. I love leopards for this. They're
And
very,
we have camera traps all over the
oh,
forest, and so we see them very often on camera traps. So we
um,
know that the leopard density in the park is rather high.
no, it was very interesting, Tobias, today. We learned a lot about chimpanzees in Gabon, and it's very hopeful, your message. You know, the park is so well guarded and safe. The environment helps, I think, and the low density of Gabon as well. And to know that in Gabon, there you have said 80% of forest, huh, on the in the country.
Yes.
So it's impressive what they've done in a world where deforestation is everywhere. Knowing that this little country manages to have such beautiful places and parks, and Ozouga, the work you guys are doing and studying our cousins there for so long and hopefully for a long time to come. I'm sure the finances are not always easy, but when it's research, it's always difficult. But
Yes.
yeah, hopefully, maybe this podcast slowly will help spread the word. And who knows, maybe someone who will listen will come help you guys or make a donation. You never know. You never know.
That would be great. We're always open for that.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. But thanks again, Tobias, for everything.
Well, thank you for having me,
My
and
pleasure.
all the best with your great podcast.
Thank you very much, Tobias. You have a good day.
Bye bye.
Bye.